finally see you, Elizabeth. We've been talking, but I've
Okay,
never.
we're
Yeah, it's
live.
nice to have a face to face finally.
We're live.
Right.
And good
All
evening.
right.
And just a couple of seconds before 6 o'clock. By what time is it? I have like my laptop computer time
I
5:59.
have
I have
5 minutes.
5:55. What do you have?
I have 5:55.
You do. Okay, good. Well, here's the thing. We I announced that we would be having this discussion. If we're a couple of minutes early, that's fine. I want those who are possibly tuning in now. We have two people that are tuning in. This is going to be an incredible conversation, discussion. We have attorney Elizabeth Buchanan. She's here. She is the lead local counsel for Richard DeLisi, who recently was released this month. What a great Christmas gift to get. He was released after serving 31 years in prison in Florida for felonies related to cannabis criminal charges that were nonviolent. And at 40 years old, he was convicted. He just came out. He's 71 years old. It's an incredible story. And so Elizabeth Buchanan, she's a private attorney here in Florida. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely, always. She does pro bono with a very important, great organization called the Last Prisoner Project. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so what they do is they try to, in cases like these where someone is serving like a really harsh, disproportionate sentence in relation to marijuana offenses, they seek to do what just happened here, was an incredible outcome. And also joining me is a good friend of mine, Wellington Barlow. He's an attorney, and a couple of years ago, I found out about him because my real good friend, colleague, and he's just an amazing attorney, mentor to me, a great attorney, Robert Eckerd, pointed out to me that Mr. Attorney Barlow had created this amazing software, which in fact it is. I'm familiar with it. I've interviewed Attorney Barlow about it. In fact, the Ledger, which covered this story on Richard DeLisi, referenced this amazing software that Attorney Buchanan is going to talk to us about. So, Attorney Buchanan, can you just tell us a little bit of how you got involved with this gentleman and what happened, and walk us through everything that happened and what you did?
So in the beginning of quarantine, I had seen an advertisement from the Last Prisoner Project about how they need volunteers and how attorneys can assist with securing the release of some of these nonviolent cannabis offenders. So after I watched the whole video, I felt that I really needed to get involved. So I sent an email, and within about 2 weeks, they had paired me and two other attorneys with Richard DeLisi. And he was before he was released last Tuesday, he was the longest serving nonviolent cannabis offender. And in Florida, since we don't have parole and we don't have the different release mechanisms that other states have, the primary way that we were trying to secure his release was initially through clemency. So we put together a clemency packet to supplement the application that he had already submitted to the Florida Governor and Clemency Board. So while looking through and thinking, what do we need to put in this packet, I thought we really need to include evidence, data to show that Richard's sentence wasn't just. Because when you hear 90 years for nonviolent cannabis offenses, you kind of know instinctually that, okay, that doesn't sound right. But we needed actual evidence. And I had sat in a presentation done by Mr. Barlow about 2 years ago down in the Miami-Dade Public Defender's Office. And I had heard the presentation about how we can really use this sentencing precedent to make more equal sentences. While this data is usually used prior to sentencing, I thought
You kind of froze there a little bit, Elizabeth. So, Elizabeth, if you can hear me, just log off and log back on if you need to, because something happened there from your end that where you froze. Log back on, Elizabeth. Okay, so let's just wait. Here, let's get her back here. Elizabeth?
Technology.
It happens, you know, I'm used to it. I've
Mhm.
already had my fair share of since I started broadcasting through the pandemic. We'll just give her a couple of minutes to let me call her
Yes.
to because we're not gonna with okay, here she goes. So let me remove this one.
Okay.
Okay, you're back.
Can you hear me
You
now?
know what? Yeah, you're
Okay.
okay.
Yes.
Sorry, that's one of the downsides of living out in
It
the
is. Let me ask you a question. Is your are you connected to your router or are you doing Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, could you connect to your router?
Not sure that I'll have a cord easily.
Okay, it is. Let's do our best. Go. Where did you leave off?
I believe I was saying that usually the sentencing is used prior to sentencing, but we were going to use it for the first time in the process.
Okay.
So I reached out to Mr. Barlow, and he was nice enough to offer all of the sentencing precedent for Mr. DeLisi's case. And so he provided 3 different categories of the first was racketeering, all racketeering cases in Polk County, all racketeering in Florida, and then so for offense that he was.
Hold on. Yeah, we're having some difficulty here. Hold on a second. Let me call her.
Yeah, you might want to just get her on the phone
Yeah, you're right.
and let her talk and just have a frozen picture.
Hold on a second.
Is it work?
Yeah, we're having. Pick up your phone.
Hello.
Okay, hold on a second. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a second. Can you hear her?
I heard her. Yes.
You can hear her on the phone? Okay, just can you maybe telephonically, let's try this.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Can you hear her, Barlow?
Yeah, I hear her good. Yeah, just
okay, so
yes,
let's try to do this telephonically because something's happening and sometimes it's because you need to be actually connected to the router and the Wi-Fi is kind of not as stable. So let's just go ahead and finish telephonically so that there's no interruption. How's that? Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we can hear you perfectly. So continue. You saw Attorney Barlow's presentation down in Miami. You thought, wow, this is cool. And you followed up because you thought this is with this precise case was maybe that's what you needed to do a comparison on so that it would supplement the clemency application that he submitted.
Yes. And once I spoke with Mr. Barlow, he provided me 3 different categories of sentencing precedent. And the first was all racketeering cases in Polk County. The second was all racketeering cases in Florida. And the third was marijuana trafficking offenders in Florida. And so we looked at these 3 categories because Richard had been sentenced and convicted for the primary offense of racketeering, in addition to trafficking cannabis of 100 to 2,000 pounds and conspiracy to traffic cannabis for 100 to 2,000 pounds. So Mr. Barlow provided me, first we'll go through the racketeering cases out of Polk County. So Richard received that 90-year sentence. He was given 30 years for each charge to run consecutively. So when looking at the racketeering cases out of Polk County, the most someone was ever sentenced to was 11 years. And the average sentence was about 6 years. For all racketeering cases in Florida, the most someone was sentenced to was 38 years. And the average sentence was about 19 years. So very significantly different than the treatment that Richard had received in sentencing. And then looking at marijuana trafficking offenders, we look at, some of these offenders had been also, in addition to being convicted of marijuana trafficking offenses, they were convicted of violent offenses, such as carjacking with a deadly weapon, where this offender only received 5 years in prison and 5 years probation. Another offender convicted of marijuana trafficking was also convicted of robbery with a gun or deadly weapon and false imprisonment, and he received 15 years prison and 10 years probation. And, when you look at it, okay, not all cases are the same, but Richard did not have any aggravating circumstances or factors that should have less than 90 years.
Hello? Elizabeth?
And she was getting crunk up real good too. She's getting crunk up.
Elizabeth, okay, so let's bring her on here to see. Let me see. I'm gonna hang up here. Let me see if she comes back up. Let me call her back.
If she has a landline, she might want to use that.
Right.
She was just getting good too.
Yeah. Okay, so for those of you that are following, we are going to try to get Attorney Buchanan back. Okay, so you know what happened? She lost, I think, some juice on her phone. So it's wait. Okay, so let's see if we can get her on here.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you. Let's try.
Sorry, this is not. Next time I know to use.
Next time we gotta consult with IT first.
Yes, this is not my specialty.
Okay, so you're doing comparisons with ESAS, and you're seeing that for violent crimes, it's a lot less than 90 years. Yes.
Yeah. And all cases are different, but Richards did not have these aggravating factors that he should have been given 90 years for. That significantly disparate sentence just doesn't make sense, especially when the judge only cited one reason for Richard to be given that upward departure. And that was because that he had found that him and his brother were the ringleaders. They were the organizers. But in reality, his lawyer had presented an entrapment defense. And looking at the facts of the offense, it really should have played, into the sentencing that there was a confidential informant pushing for Richard to commit these offenses. So it wasn't just 100% on his own with his brother initiating these, wanting to smuggle cannabis. So we really have to look at, why did Richard receive this long? And
let me call her again. I'm gonna call you, Miss Buchanan. I'm sorry. I'm gonna call you on the phone to get you back on here. Okay, so it's ringing. Hopefully she picks up the phone.
Your call has been forwarded to an...
I think it's better if we do it. Pick up the phone.
Your call has been forwarded.
Okay, let's see. Okay, let's try it one more time on. Okay, there you go.
Okay. Sorry, it's not ringing through. I don't know what's going on.
It's fine. It's fine. So let's we have to question as a society, as a country, as a state, why are, I mean, this happened 31 years ago that he was sentenced. Do you have sentences differed significantly from that time? In other words, this seems to be a complete outlier. In fact, it's headlined, he's the longest serving prisoner for this type of offense. So maybe we may not see something as drastic like this again, especially with what's going on currently in regards to cannabis reform.
I hope that we don't see this type of, an outlier sentencing again, but without using the equity and sentencing analysis system, there's no way to guarantee that.
Okay, so let me ask you a question about this, because I read most of the reports, not all of them. Mm-hmm. But so we have him filing for clemency. You enter as an attorney providing pro bono work. You all supplement your team his clemency application, and then thereafter, and as part of it, you use ESAS, the equity in sentencing analysis system, which is phenomenal. Every public defender, every private attorney needs to use this in cases like this where there's an exorbitant amount of prison time, or there's a bottom man or bottom of the guidelines sentence. I think every criminal defense attorney worth their salt would look into this, and would be remiss if they didn't. But in any event, you went because you saw the presentation in Miami, you do the comparison, you say, wow. And that's part of your pitch in the supplemental packet that you submitted, saying, look, to the governor, to the clemency board, this is disparate.
Yeah. And Mr. DeLisi, he made our case a little easier for us because he was the model inmate. He had really done every program possible, had learned how to read and write at the age of 40. He, had a very limited disciplinary record. So when you show, okay, he had this extreme outlier sentence, he was given a significantly higher sentence than other similarly situated or worse offenders, and then you look at his post-incarceration activity and who he was, it just doesn't make sense why we are wasting tax dollars still incarcerating this man. So that's what we really wanted to present, because as people get older, the bill, gets higher for the Department of Corrections. It's not free to incarcerate people.
You know what? And I wanted to give special mention to Attorney Barlow. Not only did I, because of my colleague Robert Eckards pointing me to this software, not only did I discover an incredible tool to use as a criminal defense attorney, criminal law practitioner, but I made a really good friend who happens to like Cuban food.
Oh yeah, I love it. Picadillo is my favorite. Picadillo. I cook it too. I know how to cook it too.
Wow.
The first time we met, I invited him out to dinner, and I said, I want to see your software. And so we had good Cuban food, and he demonstrated the system. I know it's in reaction to Harold Sarasota series a couple of years ago that made headlines. It was a series of articles focusing in on disparity in our prisons, in the sentencing as it relates to Black men comparing with their white counterparts. The interesting thing that has always stayed with me is that I know Attorney Barlow created this software with two other gentlemen, and because of that issue. But when I began to kind of try to learn about the software, I know Attorney Barlow told me, Haiti, this is not just about disparity, although that's why it started, of Black men, but it's also a disparity of any kind. White men, gender, any type of bias that would make a sentence inequitable. This software is not biased in that regard, in that it tries to seek any type of bias. And so that's a good thing. This is a great illustration of that. He's a white man that, especially in the culture time that we're now focused on Black Lives Matter, and that there are groups calling justifiably so for disparities in the system, seemingly. This is not just, this covers everyone. And so we as a state, I believe, have an interest to implement this software to counter any type of disparate sentencing. Do you want to add anything, Mr. or Attorney Barlow?
A lot. I mean, first
Okay.
of all, I thank Elizabeth for volunteering her time to do this. I mean, she's volunteering to do this. And then, to get so heavily involved in something so serious like she did. And then, I'm blessed to help them because, I mean, this case goes way beyond what I ever thought that this system, could do. So I'm just very, very humbled and pleased that somebody saw it for what it could do. But as far as, like I try to tell people, it helps everybody. And quite frankly, when we first started using it, it was helping more Caucasians and Hispanics than African Americans. The first person that it helped was a white male who he was facing 10 to 150 years in prison. And the prosecutor wanted to give him at least 10 years. He was just about to turn 21. He turned 21 the day after he was sentenced. And the judge listened to the ESAS demonstration and its sentencing precedent and gave him 2 years in the youth camp, 2 years community control, which is home detention, and then 2 years probation. So that was the first case. And then, but the case that really kind of set it off was a white female in Pensacola who was facing 35 years in prison. And the state attorney wanted 35 years after they lost the trial. It was a racketeering charge. And but when the judge saw the data, she sentenced the lady to 7 years in prison instead of the 35. That saved her 28 years in prison, and it saved the taxpayers $600,000 in prison costs. And so one of the things I like to tell people is that it's not about race at all. This system will help anybody and everybody whose attorney will use it. And judges are starting to like it because what they realize is that, especially if you have a judge that's been on the bench about 10, 15 years or so, they can't remember, all those cases. So what ESAS can do is show them, look, you're about to give somebody 10 years in prison today that you gave 5 years probation 2 years ago. And they like to see that because no judge wants to be disparate. Yet what this system does, and the reason I really love it, is it eliminates excuses and it eliminates ignorance. So nobody can say, well, I didn't know what I was doing. Well, with this system right here, everybody's going to know what they're doing if they use this system.
Yeah. And so for those of you, everyone has an interest. If you know of someone that's currently incarcerated, has a pending case where the state attorney's office is seeking prison time, and you're interested, you should talk to your attorney, that loved one's attorney. If it's you who has a pending case, you can learn more about this program, this amazing game-changing program at Technologies for Justice. It's right here, TECHNOLOGIESFORJUSTICE.com. Technologies for Justice. Click for a demo. Amazing software. I'm going to go ahead and I want to just take a look at Mr. DeLisi too for the viewers to see this incredible. This is unjust. In one of the reports, but USA Today, Mr. DeLisi says, it was so unjust what they did to me. I just hope that I can help other people that are in the same situation. He's expressing interest in becoming an activist with this issue to help other people. Thank God for the Last Prisoner Project. It's a nonprofit that advocates. Thank God for attorneys who are pro bono minded, who go out there and try to make a difference. It's not just about money. When we go to law school, it's not just about later graduating and being focused on just making money. Making money is good. It's important. We need to. But it's good to do what Attorney Buchanan. So the story doesn't end there. We have 7 more minutes. We have people following now. Please share with your loved ones, with friends, with people, with the public. We have disparate sentences. And this software can detect that. We have the ability to do that now. Prior to that, it was harder, right, Attorney Barlow? It was harder to do that before, and this just made it so easy to be able to speak to that.
Yeah, you could do it before, but for instance, it might take months to do what this system can do in about 2 minutes tops. And so it was cost prohibitive and it was labor intensive. And so this system can go through 2 million records in like 2 seconds and pull up apple and orange to orange comparisons. And you know what's so interesting is that the more people find out about it, like when I tell judges and everything, the first thing most people say is, wow, you mean this doesn't exist? That's what the lay people normally say. And but it doesn't anywhere else. To our knowledge, this is the only system like this in the nation.
Okay, so again, where can people reach you, Attorney Barlow, to learn more about equity sentencing analysis system? And it's taken me quite a while to commit that to memory.
Just say ESAS.
I know, but I want to say what the acronym represents. Yeah. So where can they reach you?
Equity in Sentencing Analysis System. It's at technologiesforjustice.com. The phone number. The toll free number.
Hold on. Technologies. Let me write this down. Technologiesforjustice.com.
Yeah, and it's
okay. And so let's go ahead and put that there. Technologiesforjustice.com. Yes, and your number is 855.
Right, 855-845-3727.
Okay, great. So let's go ahead and put that there so that the public can reach you. 855-845-3727. That is your
Correct.
number. The public can reach you directly if they have a loved one, someone that they think might be going to prison, is in prison. Maybe something can be done post-conviction, right? Something could be done. They would have to talk to their attorney, but it's better to do it before the sentencing. Yes?
Well, yes, but let me say this right here. When you call that number, just hit option 1. It comes straight to me. If you don't get me, just leave a message and I'll call you back. Get a lot of calls. So here's what we're doing. We actually have a pro bono program. We're working with some law students at a Florida law school who are volunteering time. And what we're doing is there are juveniles have to be resentenced every so often. And so what we're doing is we're offering free ESAS searches for public defenders and RCC attorneys who have juvenile resentencing. We're doing those free of charge. Believe it or not, people are not consulting us for that. I know somebody that Haiti, who their office has a resentencing, at least one right now. I just found out about it this week. These people know that we offer this free data and they're not taking advantage of it. So I'm not going to call any names or any offices, but I'm calling people out because, we're giving this. We have a team of law students who I personally trained on how to use ESAS, and they're volunteering time to run searches, and I have people not taking advantage of that. Now, as far as the regular public is concerned, if you have, let's say you have a relative in prison and they're trying to get their sentence reviewed or changed, whatever the case may be, you can contact me at the phone number or the email address through the website, and then we can tell whether or not we can help you or not. We'll tell you what the fees are, some search or whatever. If you have a pending case and you have a lawyer who does not have this system, then we need to talk to your lawyer to tell your lawyer what we could do for your particular case, and you'll pay for that service. We'll send the data directly to your attorney, and then they can use it in court. Not only do we also provide pleadings, model pleadings that have worked in cases. We just had a case a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now, be 3 weeks ago tomorrow. This particular person shot somebody 6 times. He's facing 15 years in prison, and the judge wound up, after looking at the data based upon other case dispositions, the judge wound up giving the person time served, which is about 12 days in county jail, followed by 2 years of home detention, and then the rest 12 years probation. Whereas the state attorney was trying to give the person 15 years in prison, but the judge, in the judge's wisdom, based upon the sentencing precedent that came from equity and sentencing analysis system saw that it was the right thing to do to not send the person to prison. So that's how powerful the data can be.
Okay, folks. So you can reach Attorney A. Wellington Barlow at 855-845-3727 and hit option 1 to be directly put in contact with Attorney Barlow. One last thing before we wrap up. It's 6:29. The next broadcast we'll be talking to the recent local headline, Tamara Schamberger filing a lawsuit against Henry Sheikh Washington. So stay tuned for that at 7. We're going to have a discussion. Chris Ingram, attorney Luke Leroux, and community activist and former candidate Alexandra M. Gilmore. Attorney Buchanan. The reports suggest the press or the spokesperson for DOC, which I read, after he's released this December, they want to make it an after the clemency and the supplemental information that you and your colleagues who are volunteering on this case sent. The spokesperson wanted to suggest that had nothing to do. They went back after all his clemency and the information. I don't know exactly what time they got the supplement, but at some point after the clemency, at least his application, we know that they start going back to 1989 to discover that he has credit, and then they realize that he has another type of credit that they could have considered awarding him, and that was the basis for his release. I don't know. I think I'm doubtful about that. Do you have anything to say about that? I think it was the clemency application plus your work that's what had the result that we now see. You want to speak to that?
Well, there was a Lakeland rule that was put out, and that really went into significantly different sentences that Richard had compared to those similar sentence offenders. So that happened. Before Richard's sentence was changed, there was a local broadcast highlighting the injustice that he was facing.
Was that the Ledger?
Excuse me?
Was it the Ledger?
There was the Lakeland Ledger, and then there was
the Lakeland Ledger?
Yes, the Lakeland Ledger, and then there was the local news broadcast that aired the night before.
Afterwards is when he got the awarded of that game time.
The next day after that news broadcasting, on Tuesday, election day, he was called to his classification officer's office, where he was notified by someone up at Tallahassee that they had found all these days and that they could give him back this game time. Now, if the secretary from DOC wants to, if that's not what formally happened, we don't know. We'll just call it a Christmas miracle. But Mr. DeLisi is home with his family, and he will be enjoying this Christmas.
It was a Christmas miracle, I think. I don't know, but yeah,
we know what happened.
We know what happened.
Pressure bust pipes, like they say on the street.
Absolutely.
You put pressure on something like that, public pressure, it busts pipes. It's one thing I want to say before we get off. So just let me know whenever I can say.
No, go. Yeah, you have time.
This is significant, what I'm getting ready to say. And I'm surprised that it hasn't really made the paper somewhere. The state of Florida, in response to the Sarasota Herald Tribune's groundbreaking study in 2016. Well, in 2018, the Florida legislature adopted a data collection bill that was specifically designed to collect more data so that we can have better transparency in criminal sentencing and all that. They touted this thing as the best thing since sliced bread. It was a model for all of the other states and everything else. Well, guess what has happened, ladies and gentlemen? Unfortunately, for all of us, they're collecting less data now than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And I get a CPC compliance report from the Department of Corrections once a year. And the one from this past fiscal year has less data than the fiscal year before that. I can show it to you if you want me to pull it up. And the year before that had less data. And so what has happened is they've tinkered with the system so much that we're collecting less data than they were collecting before they created this law and adopted it in 2018. And so Technologies for Justice, our chief technology officer, Buster Bragg, is working with, officials in the right places in the state of Florida who are trying to, he's trying to help them get their act together. Now, we're private citizens. We're a private company. And, as it turns out, we're doing more service to the taxpayers than the people who work for the state government. And so we're collecting less data, and they're not telling people that, I guess, because it's really embarrassing.
Well, we're going to come on again. I'm going to have you back. And if you can join us too, Attorney Buchanan, to discuss. I know it was Chris Sprowls, who's now the House Speaker. I asked him a couple of months ago when we were waiting on this database that was supposed to address some of these issues. And from what I hear, doesn't really have the ability to do what your software does. And right. Okay. So that's the bottom line. That's what is that's the most important thing. Equity in sentencing. Okay. When people are not equitably sentenced, you're supposed to have equal protection under the law.
It's a constitutional violation of their right.
Right. So we're gonna have a follow-up, and I think, if I were to take a guess, but we're not calling names tonight, especially a week before Christmas. We're not gonna call names because we're gonna be nice. We're not gonna be Grinches. Exactly. We're gonna hold off, and we are eventually going to start asking, if you're going to run for office and you are entrusted with the ability to lead the public defender's office, when a private attorneys, what our obligation, our responsibility is, it's a huge one in regards to that, making sure that people's constitutional rights are protected, are respected and preserved. So we will start doing some in 2020. That's on our to-do list. We're going to follow up, and we're going to talk about this again. Okay? Thank you so much for both of you joining me. It was a pleasure having you on, Attorney Buchanan. I commend you. I give you congratulations on this work. I know really what the miracle was. Okay? So thank you for your work. Very proud of you. Your parents should be very proud of you. You have come out, and you already have a heart not only to make money as a private attorney, but you want to serve, and you want to pro bono represent, help the least among us that are in these predicaments. Any parting words, Attorney Barlow, before we wrap up?
What would the Lord have require of you but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God?
Micah 6:8.
Micah 6 and 8. And it's a wrap.
Yep. I will be back at 7:00 sharp with Chris Ingram, Alexandra Gilmore, and Attorney Luke Leroux. We're going to be talking about the filing of a lawsuit by Tammy Schamberger in the Hillsborough County school board race in Hillsborough this election cycle. A lawsuit was filed against Henry Shake, Washington D. Victor. Perhaps that might change. We don't know, but we're going to be talking about that at 7:00. Stay tuned. Haiti Oropesa with Florida You Judge.